Now, this isn't presumptive. This is not like documented. This is off just viewing point over AEW's life cycle over the last 2.5 years. They're gonna die in half a decade, and I would be the first one to say I told you so. Now, other than that, that will be for a later video. I'm talking about uh, Jim Ross. Yes, we went over a video like this before. Jim Ross been in the headlines of AEW for the most negative of reasons when it comes to spewing his opinion on the pro wrestling, the business, and even the world champion over the last after probably pretty much half a year. And some of them has been remotely positive or negative over his viewing points of the pro wrestling, his opinion on the mentality of the workers, or hell, even who's like a better wrestler. And the and I feel like he's fed up. I really feel like he's fed up. And you could just tell off his freaking you could just tell off his moniker, the way he commentates. They don't even want him like the prime reason they still get WWE rejects is to still get some semblance of casual audience appeal and to try to spew off the WWE audience with a dying WWE audience because most people don't want to watch anymore. So if we're looking over that at, at you know viewpoint, you can tell that Jim Ross never shows that much presumptive emotion, always looks sick, never shows that much enthusiasm like back in the day. Uh, and whenever like the wrestlers even like he even tries to spew over an opinion, and most of it is constructive. Like you barely see him bashing anybody. He brings over a part where he's partially neutral, but still shows his support for the company he works for, and that's understandable. I understand you have to play it safe, but the way people go about it, like Kenny Omega, Brandon Cutler, most of these SJW libtard indie jobbers that know that they're not going to go anywhere other than down when it comes to like trying to get outside fans and actually trying to grow over their business and actually seeing who would be positive to grow AEW. You suspect a guy like Jim Ross or guys backstage that actually had a keenship or an influence in the making sure pro wrestling been mainstream. A guy that scouts over talent, a man that with decades in the business. And Jim Ross, he just already knows like the wrestling sucks. He knows that the champion is not even worth it to be over in the conversation when it comes to being the best. And he just knows he doesn't give a shit about the wrestling show in general. Imagine when it comes to 2022, their contract with TNT when it comes to weekly Dynamite, like already now a dying show because of inconsistent viewership and declining ratings, and knowing that they have to push over on TBS where it's just quintessential reruns. Jim Ross is already like pushing over his ticket. Like I'd rather hear him on NWA Power than 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 Dynamite. And I'm not always going to just say that their entire roster sucks because there's guys that do look like stars. Like Miro looks like a star. Britt Baker looks like a star. Brian Cage looks like a star. Lucha Brothers could be really good stars if they've been used rightly. Like I know that's an unpopular opinion, but I really feel like these guys can do fun stuff in the ring if you put like them in like a different division. Like there is some talent, and like the way like Jim Ross goes about it is quintessentially neutral, but he shares his opinion. And like Kenny Omega and Brandon Cutler, Cody Rhodes, like most of these jobbers coming around disrespecting him. And it's like, even the way he calls the match is like another Peso Cita, another clothesline. Oh my god, what a match right there. He gets most of his spots overly wrong. And it's like, he's not showing that much enthusiasm like he did back in like the 90s and 2000s. And it sucks. Like, I know, like, he knows, like, and most fans know the wrestling sucks. There's no edged out charisma. Nothing feels like anything memorable every week. Like, nothing feels like it leads you over an impact. Knowing Jim Ross knows, like, the wrestling is repetitive. The stars can't take constructive criticism. And they really don't believe in kayfabe, like, at all. Like, it's like, oh, everybody knows that it's a work, so we're just gonna keep posting selfies. I'm gonna call myself the Forbidden Door because New Japan is like forbidden, even though everybody does business with New Japan, even dining companies. And I'm just like you guys never get guys that are about to show up in the G1 climate. Like he knows like this gay indie schmuck jobber fed is barely gonna last even as long as uh probably XPW or Lucha Underground. Just seeing over like their lack of innovation and just no creative direction and just lack of any tough skin, especially like back in the day. Like I always hear in reports or interviews, like you need tough skin to be a pro wrestler, not just physically, even mentally, because the veterans will clown you. You have to get through that type of endurance and then the travel schedule and the fans. Like, there's a lot of stuff gunning for you, and like now everybody's so mad accepting. It just makes sure that all these indie jobbers that know they ain't shit, that always feel like they are like their shit doesn't stink, even though they're drawing like the bare minimum of what Raw gets nowadays. And now they can't even take criticism from like a well-known man that's been most parts of the wrestling business. And you can tell like Jim Ross really doesn't feel like he's even part of the AEW company. He's just there to stick it over to WWE and I'm all for it for that, but just the way if it was like anywhere else like Impact or like any other TV show I would have understand, but why just AEW? I feel like Jim Ross is gonna quit, in my opinion. But that's just my assumption. I don't want to make everything cut and blank because, as I just discussed earlier in this video, this is not documented. This is just my overall viewpoint and how I think Jim Ross feels about AEW. I feel like he knows that these jobber wrestlers ain't shit. They're all SJW in their own world babies that don't know how to take any semblance of real constructive criticism or ways how to actually make their wrestling more realistic or even, make the company better business wise. But yeah, that's just my assumption over on it. I'm sure Jim Ross has the best intentions for AEW, but I feel like he's fed up. He's fed up, and I wouldn't blame him. Thanks for watching. That will not be all coming into the video. And that's it for me.